Time for a change of format, but no change in terms of all the conversation that we'll continue to have around the game. The three-match ODI series is done and dusted. India prevailing by 2-1, and in less than 48 hours' time, we're off at the same venue to India versus Sri Lanka, the first of 3 T20 internationals. Welcome to the usual suspects, and I mean that with every bit of reverence. Lots of fun we've had in the 3 ODIs. Zaheer Khan, Harsha Bhogle. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. I love the way you started saying usual suspects. Then you thought, oh, maybe I should be a little nicer to them. So, I meant with all reverence. Doesn't matter, Gautam. We worked together for many years.
Yeah,
but good fun. I mean, the T20, I think, has more at stake for India to discover those 1 or 2 places that I think are open for India. Maybe a batting spot, maybe a spin bowling spot, or maybe a new ball spot. So India have got something to learn. And for Sri Lanka, everything, because they want to get that combination right. They're going to go and play the qualifiers at the T20 World Cup. And they don't get to play in the IPL to have more T20 games behind them. So for Sri Lanka, a lot at stake. But unlike in the ODIs, there's a little more at stake for India in these 3 games.
Yes, Zaheer, I'll come to you at the very top. We said at the ODI series, well, maybe you want to look at it as a bit of experimentation, points at stake for Sri Lanka. But here, for both sides, important in terms of slotting in those places before that T20 World Cup, particularly for India, Zaheer.
There's no doubt about it. And the captain himself has made it very clear by giving that statement, isn't it? Saying that, oh, I'm also on trial now. I have to cement that spot. So that says a lot, isn't it? Like, the captain knows that, okay, he's got responsibility of the team right now to win the series, but also knows that, his personal ambition, his personal goal is to cement the spot for the T20 World Cup, the ICC tournament, which he really enjoys. So that shows that the kind of strength at the moment, and the kind of talent pool which Indian team has.
Well, at the very top, I think if we can just try and maybe get a sense of how many places do we feel are up for grabs. I'll throw it to both of you. I mean, we know that the likes of a Virat Kohli and a Rohit Sharma just slot in there automatically. But with Shikhar, in the context of Shikhar Dhawan's statement, Harsha, how many of those slots, starting with the batting?
I think there's a traffic jam in the top 2 places. So if you play Rohit and Virat, I think Virat said he wants to open because he wants to make room for Surya Kumar Yadav at 3, which is in itself an interesting statement. He said that during the England T20s, I think, which in itself is an interesting statement because Virat has been fantastic for India in T20 cricket. Dare I say, better for India than for RCB, though that's a statement that will provoke a lot of emotion. But his numbers for India are just incredible. But for Virat to say, I will open, it means he's closing that spot and opening a middle order spot. Alternately, you could have someone opening the batting and then have Virat 3, maybe Surya 4, Shreyas 4, Ishan 4. There's a logjam there at 4. And then you come to Rishabh at 5. I think the left-handedness will be important. But don't forget, there's KL Rahul there, there's Prithvi Shaw there. So while Shikhar is making a claim, he'll have to do that at a very significant strike rate because the other 2, in fact, Prithvi especially, he just goes boom, boom, boom. So that is the primary slot that I think India want to look for, especially for Shikhar, whose form for Delhi in the last 2 years has been sensational.
We'll come back to Shikhar Dhawan in a bit, Zaheer, but Harsha's pretty much covered the batting. What about lower down the order? How many slots up for grabs you feel?
Well, you have to approach it in pretty much similar fashion, isn't it? There is a traffic jam with the new ball for sure. You have Bumrah to close the innings, and at the top, you have a lot of bowlers who can do the similar kind of role. When you look at Deepak Chahar, you look at Bhuvneshwar Kumar, you look at Sakaria also for that matter. It's similar kind of a role, just getting that swing with the new ball and using those variations. Spin, there is plenty of options to move around. So I think what is going to work in India's favor is how this World Cup, in terms of the rule of how many people you can have in the squad, they might get saved by that. And I think what they really need to do is define that. How do you want to stack up those number of overs when it comes to bowling, and how you want to approach that batting in terms of different slots. So you can literally look at the phases of the innings. You have the top phase, and then you have the collecting phase in the middle, and then how you want to close the innings. And that then basically determines who your options are. Harsha is right when he's saying that there is a traffic jam at the top order. So which means the other day what we were saying that you have to make those tough calls. because not everyone can get a look in. But you can definitely look at good backups. So when you're looking at the backups, you'll say that yes, India is sitting very pretty. But I think they'll have to really, really think very hard in terms of defining that T20 game, how that 20 overs batting is going to be the case with the Indian team, and how those 20 overs of bowling is going to be, who is going to play that middle role of controlling the innings with spin, who is going to finish the bowling, who is going to start the bowling. And also, I think in modern day cricket, you need that one spinner who can bowl with the new ball as well. So who is it going to be? These are the finer things. It's going to determine exactly what direction the selectors and the team manager will be going.
The one bowler India don't have is someone who turns the ball away from the left-hander. So the only off-spinner really playing at that level is Ashwin. You've got Krishnappa Gautam. Maybe if you're looking at Chakravarti, who does a little bit of this, little bit of that, but you really don't have someone who's turning the ball away from the left-hander. So maybe that is one slot India will want to look at. You're playing a team like West Indies, and you've got maybe a Lewis, Gale, Hetmeyer, Puran, all these guys maybe playing. So you want someone who turn the ball away. That is the only shortcoming that I see. Otherwise, there's lots of options.
So just to finish off on that point, Zaheer, very briefly, would you then look for a top quality off spinner, or would you turn to someone like a Rohit Sharma and say, can you try and hone your skills for those certain kind of games? Just throwing out an X factor.
Now you have Surya Kumar Yadav as well. So yes, I mean, if that kind of option is available in the team, in the playing 11, certainly changes that balance we often speak about, because you're not going to use that option all the time. You only going to use that option sparingly. How MS used to use Suresh Raina when he was there in the side, or Yusuf Pathan for that matter. So that just gives you that added flexibility, added bonus. But when you're looking at just off spinner playing that role, then you have only 3-4 names to pick from. Krishnappa Gautam being one. You have Washington Sundar. You have Jayant as well, who's been phenomenal with the new ball, especially using that guile well. So I think these are the options, or you go to the most experienced guy in that who's done so much damage at the test level, Ashwin. He knows. He's not afraid of trying new things. So these are the options which you have. As I said, I think it's not going to be just it's going to be problem of plenty for sure for the Indian team. They just have to be smart enough to understand what is the opposition, what are the kind of teams which will be playing, who we're going to play in the semi-final. I think mind you, in 2019 ODI World Cup, I think that was one trick which they missed. What if? Who are we going to play in that semi-final? On that particular day, what are the challenges we can have? What is our strength and what can be our weakness? The start has been their strength, right? But it didn't come good on that particular day. So you have to think in that fashion and try and find those answers.
Fair enough.
The interesting thing is, I mean, the reason I didn't mention Washington Sundar, obviously, they're saying he's going to miss the entire IPL. I mean, these finger injuries, Zach, are they taking longer to heal? I mean, the fractures never seem to take that long to heal, because if he's out of the IPL, that means he's not available till about second week of October. And we are now in second week of July. So obviously 3 months.
If it's bowling finger, so then it makes it that much harder. Certain injuries are so frustrating, and I'm sure if it's the case, then it is going to be very frustrating for Washington Sundar, because he'll be able to do most of the things. A finger injury doesn't really stop you from going for a run, doesn't really stop you from keeping your fitness going. But what it's really stopping him from doing his primary role, which is bowling, and just the too much of pressure on those tendons and ligaments. With that hard seam, it's not easy. It's frustrating. It's just like when a batter has a tennis elbow. It's just like able to do everything but still not able to just bat, and it's very frustrating as a cricketer in having such injury.
Well, let's just move on with the important news at the top, that Sri Lanka have started by winning the toss, and unlike in the ODI series, they've decided to invite India to bat first, which you kind of expect in a T20 game. But let's go back to the points that Harsha and Zaheer made about the traffic jams at the top and the bottom for Team India. The one difference is, despite the fact that Colombo is a city known for its traffic jams, their cricketers are not creating traffic jams in their own lineup. There's not a push for places. If anything, there's a bit of a drought, Harsha. If you compare the numbers for how many T20 internationals for Sri Lanka versus India, the gulf is huge.
And that makes India favorites. I mean, India should look at that ODI result as an aberration, saying, "No, hang on. Even though we made 6 changes, we still had the experience to have won that game. So they have to go into this game as favorites simply because they've played so much more T20 cricket. I mean, you look if you want to define high pressure one-day cricket as playing T20 internationals, as playing IPL, PSL, playing the big leagues, the Big Bash, whatever." Sri Lanka hardly play. I mean, the best their players play, as we've seen, is in the Bangladesh Premier League. But one thing they will have is no reputation to defend. In T20, if you go out with a reputation to defend and say, "You know what, I am so-and-so and I can't get out and I've got to play this way," then you're in trouble already. So if Sri Lanka have nothing to lose, they might just come out firing on all cylinders, and you need to play well for 10, 12 overs to win a game, really. So, I mean, we'll wait and see. On pedigree alone, there should not be a contest. But then Sri Lanka is probably a better T20 side than an ODI side, like most teams these days.
Vast gap, Zaheer. The numbers that we're talking about are so big. 49, the average T20 experience for Sri Lanka versus 120 for India. Now, those are huge numbers. Only 2 with over 100 T20s for Sri Lanka, and India have 11, Zaheer.
They would want to change that for sure, and change it fast. I mean, in today's cricket, if you see with the emergence of so many leagues, if you are a good cricketer, you will be playing matches. It's as simple as that. You look at Afghanistan, the kind of spin talent which you have. They are playing leagues all over the world. So if you are a good cricketer, you will be spotted and you will be picked in various other teams. The fact that there is only a handful, like we can literally count on the fingers when it comes to Sri Lankan cricketers, not getting picked in different leagues says a lot. So for them, I think the journey now is reverse of sort. You have to make that impression in the international cricket, and then start playing those franchise cricket games and stuff like that. So I think the journey is going to be that much harder for them. Having said that, there is enough talent there. So you've seen Chamika finishing those innings so beautifully. You have one in the Asranga now, getting picked in various leagues. So you will see that. It's not that it's not going to happen, but at the moment, that journey it looks a long one for Sri Lankan cricketers.
I think a great figure or a progression of figures, Harsha. We talked about all the other leagues around the world. Let's stick to ours. Let's stick to the IPL. And that tells a story. Have a look at these numbers. It tells a huge story. You don't even have to explain it. IPL season 2013, 13 Sri Lankan players. Come 2021, 0.
When I first saw this graphic, I started counting who the 13 players were from Sri Lanka. And you see how many giants they had in their team around that time. I mean, they played the 2011 final. They won 2014. They played the 2012 final. They played the 2007 final. So straight away, you look at Maila, you look at Sangakkar, you look at Malinga, you look at Murali, you look at Dilshan. Straight away, you got 5 big players in there. I don't know if Sanat Jaiswal was still playing. Was he still playing 2013? Let's go down that list. No, he wasn't. But there was Angelo Matthews, Thisara Pereira. So many of these good players. Sena Nayaka was that mystery kind of spinner. There are a lot of good players that teams wanted. And Malinga is one of the greats of the IPL. It's so many good players. Honestly, let's say, okay, I'm going out looking for something. I know that Mumbai picked Akila Dhananjaya 1 year, that Thisara Pereira has been in and around 1 year, the great Malinga has retired. But other than a Hasaranga, but Indian teams don't want to waste an overseas slot on a spinner. So who in this team do you pick? Isur Udana played last year, but that's about it.
In fact, the very reason, and Zaheer, you were actually clamoring to have this graphic on our show for this 2014 team. It's not a coincidence that many players played the IPL, and hey, guess what? They won the T20 World Cup that year.
Exactly, and I think that shows a lot about how the Sri Lankan team has progressed. They've been doing consistently well at the ICC events, and you've seen a similar kind of story with West Indies as well. At one, they ruled 1 decade, and they've had great players. It's just that there was a big slip in their rankings, how they approach their game. I think Sri Lanka is also going through a similar kind of phase. It's just about reviving that. It's just about backing the right players, and that turnaround will happen. If you look at West Indies cricket as well, just a while back, you're not getting players. Suddenly there were a few players coming in IPL, making that mark. Chris Gayle scoring those runs, Pollard making that mark. And suddenly you'll see the players coming through the ranks. So when you're looking at the Sri Lankan team, also they're pretty much there and thereabout. When you see some of the players going out there, Shanaka putting up a good show. All Wanindo Asaranga also bowling well. You've seen Avishka Fernando playing consistently well in that ODI series. So it's going to happen. It's just that it's going to take maybe a couple of years, for them to find that role model which will inspire this other youngsters as well.
I'll put a little rider, Gautam, to what I said, which is look at Sri Lanka going to Pakistan 2019. And a lot of the Sri Lankan players didn't want to go to Pakistan, so they picked who they could and sent them there, and they won the T20 series. And they won it handsomely against Pakistan. Not a bad T20 side. I mean, they blow hot, blow cold, but they've got some really good players. And Sri Lanka went there with that team and won, and a lot of people made their name over there and came back. Just tells you that in T20, you never take things for granted.
You certainly don't, but that's as far as the Sri Lankan woes are concerned. But I think if and we'll have, of course, a look at the lineups very shortly. We'll just remind you once again that Sri Lanka have won the toss and India will be batting first. But, it just one final point. It reminds me of how almost there was a clamor for Sri Lankan players. I remember, Zaheer, when there was a problem with Sri Lankan players coming to play in Chennai. Now we wouldn't mind. But those few years ago when it happened, you'd be like, but how will the Sri Lankan players play there? There's so many of them around. Now we don't have that problem if it were to occur.
Exactly. And I think, it's about when Mahela and Sangha left that team, when Lasith also was towards the end of his career. You thought Angelo Matthews or Lasith Malinga, because of injuries, he couldn't be consistent with leading the team. But you had Chandimal also in that side and was captain. So Lasith Malinga was made captain halfway through the tournament when Chandimal got injured. So so that was the pool of players which they had, which even if you ask Mahela and Sangha, they will say that okay, we have let's just go on a high. These are the youngsters now going to take the Sri Lankan cricket forward. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen. For various reasons. Reasons can be anything, but I think that phase, that transition phase for any team, it's so important, and that way India has been lucky with that. That you've always had these role models when your experienced players, when your heroes are playing the game, and that overlapping has been happening very nicely. Even if you look at the current team, that overlapping with the right mix of experienced player and the youngsters making the debut, how we've seen in the series as well. That transition is very important for any team, I think, and Sri Lanka just missed that opportunity at that stage.
Well, the only thing we can confirm to you at this stage, before we bring you the teams, is that there was a lot of discussion on the mystery spin of Varun Chakravarti, whether or not he makes the Indian 11. Well, before we even have a look at the 11, we can confirm that because we did see him getting that cap. So a couple of debutants as well for Sri Lanka. And interestingly, I mean, I wasn't considering Prithvi Shaw a debutant, Harsha, but you have to keep reminding yourself that some have played some formats and haven't played others.
I know, but there was never going to be any doubt whether or not Prithvi Shaw was going to play. So it never was a talking point. So maybe that's why it sort of wasn't top of mind. To me, there was never any doubt that Varun Chakravarti was going to play. I think India wanted him to play in Australia too. They like the look about him, especially if you've got 6 and 7 giving you overs, then you can really gamble with that kind of bowler. And I think he's bowled well against some really good players. So to my mind, that issue wasn't there either. To my mind, the only issue was which leggy do they pick? Do they pick both wicket keepers? And I think with the leggy, I think Zaheer might have mentioned at the top, it's not a bad thing. Ask Ravi and Virat, okay, who's in the pecking order in your list? We'll try and give him as many chances as possible to come good. That's why you saw Chahal play a lot in the ODIs. You'll see him play today as well.
Well, to answer that question, Yuzvendra Chahal is playing alongside Varun Chakravarti. So
clearly he's above Rahul Chahar in the pecking order of the team management.
Yep, and to answer it, both wicket keepers are playing. Ishan Kishan listed as a specialist batsman at 3, Sanju Samson at 5. That's pretty much what we thought. Both the Pandya brothers, Hardik would be playing as that third standby seamer. So 3 spinners really and 2 seamers, Harsha.
And Hardik, anything above 2 is a bonus. He gives 3 overs. If he can bowl 4, that's great. But he can't just turn his arm over. He's got to bowl like the Hardik Pandya that we knew. And I think he's still a little distance away from there. So these 3 games are in fact even more important because Hardik's not going to play ODI cricket for a while. So these 3 games are going to be very important for the T20 World Cup to see how he goes, and for certain members who might be in the think tank of a particular franchise that's got to go back to the IPL.
Well, Zaheer, at the very start of the show, you briefly alluded to Shikhar Dhawan's quote. There may be some people out there who are wondering what on earth we're talking about. So let's remind you exactly what the Indian captain or the Indian captain in Sri Lanka at the moment has said. On a personal note, the series is very important. I'm really looking forward to perform here and making my position stronger for the World Cup contention. And then we'll see how it goes. So they're talking about laying down the gauntlet, Zaheer. He said this yesterday, and he's made it very clear that he would like to be trying to throw his hat in the ring in that traffic jam.
Yeah, he's saying pick me. in short words, that's what he's saying, that I'm very keen on contributing towards the wins in that particular tournament. It's a big tournament. I'm up for it. That's the message is as simple as that. Looking at this Indian team balance, it's actually, once again, you know that you're asking players to adapt to different roles. Clearly, when you see that, okay, where is Ishan Kishan going to bat? Where is Surya Kumar Yadav going to bat? Where is Sanju Samson going to bat? They all can bat at number 3. So that is something, I think, one thing which the team management will have to really see, that which player is more flexible, more versatile in adapting to different roles. Because that will also be one of the criteria which will be closely looked upon when there is going to be selection made for the World Cup.
I guess the one thing that will go against Shikhar Dhawan is the format. You mentioned ICC event and Shikhar Dhawan, something happens inside his head. But that's purely restricted to 50 overs, Harsha. He'd want to change that if he gets the opportunity in a T20 scenario.
Look, don't forget the last T20 World Cup was played back in 2016. That was 5 years ago. Look at Shikhar Dhawan's numbers in T20 cricket 5 years ago and look at them in the last 2 years, and you'll see the difference there straight away. When Shikhar was playing for Sunrisers, he was opening with David Warner. Warner was getting off to flyers, and he was giving Shikhar the time, most days, giving Shikhar the time to build an innings. Then Shikhar goes to Delhi. Now look at the strike rates of Shikhar and Prithvi. There's not much difference. Prithvi shot 156, 157. Shikhar Dhawan is, the last couple of years, he's 138. Last year, I think he was 145. So last year, there was hardly a difference of 10 or 12. He was getting off to starts too. So one of the reasons he's saying, come look at me, is he's saying the guy you saw playing those T20 World Cups is not the guy who's playing now. He's taking chances. He's playing the big shots. He's getting off very quickly. And so, it's perfectly fine. If you've got someone who's done well on the big stage in the past and he says, come look at me, I think that's a positive sign to say, I want to play.
Yeah, I think that's the one way to look at it, right? We can give all the traffic jam analogies we want, but sometimes you want that traffic jam to be in there. You want to say that, what if a KL Rahul is injured if you've picked him? What if Rohit Sharma has a niggle? Can you slot in a like-for-like replacement immediately?
I think the message has to be clear from the top. It's important that you have a very clearly defined message to that individual player, saying that, okay, what kind of role you'll be playing, what kind of strike rates you're looking at from number 1. So if Shikhar is number 1 and you're presuming that, okay, Rohit is going to be number 2, so what kind of combination do you want? You want the Rohit Sharma to be taking his time, or you want him to be aggressor? If you want the other guy to be aggressor, then the strike rate has to justify that. And then the selection will be based on that. So I personally feel that, if Shikhar Dhawan has to really claim that spot, he has to really score at a strike rate which is higher than the competition, and the same applies to the all players who are fighting for that spot, because that is something going to be very important. When you have you've seen with Rohit Sharma that his strike rate goes up and up as he faces more and more deliveries. So you want to give him that freedom, you want to give him that cushion, and if you want to achieve that, then you want the other guy to take that much of risk, and that has to be a very clear cut defined from the management to the player. If not, the players are smart enough to understand how to go about it.
See, if Rohit is playing and Virat is playing, they have very similar innings progressions. You see, Virat, after the first 20 balls, it starts to go up, but you can't have 2-3 players all having that kind of innings progression. So if Rohit and Virat are definitely playing, then the guy in between, assuming Virat bats 3 and opens up 4, then the guy in between, who's the second opener, then he really has to go. And that is the issue with KL Rahul as well, because KL Rahul in the last year or 2 years has shown a similar innings progression, not the Rahul that we used to see, whose strike rate was ridiculous. I mean, look at that, it's 133, but Rahul used to have a strike rate of 145, 150. So if you look at the IPL numbers for the same players, you'll find Virat and Rohit having very different numbers. So, if both of them play, and I'm coming back to the Shikhar point, if Shikhar has to be that buffer playing alongside Rohit and Virat, he's got to be going 140 plus minimum.
Fair enough. So if we have to round it off with a simple discussion, and maybe it's more appropriate if we discuss this at the end of the third game, but as things stand right now, gentlemen, Dhawan yes or Dhawan no? Zaheer?
But I think it will be difficult. I mean, I have to be honest and upfront here. I think when you look at the options which are available, when you look at the strike rates also of other players, the fact that Dhawan has been able to ease into his innings was also because of say Prithvi Shaw batting at that strike rate at the other end. So that eases off that much of pressure, and that's why I was saying that if Dhawan has to really claim that spot and fight for that spot, I think that strike rate is going to matter, and he'll have to show that. He's got enough opportunities. You have IPL also coming after this, so there will be enough opportunities. But for him, it's going to be important that he shows that he can bat at that strike rate, which he'll be taking the competition out. And competition, I'm talking about KL, who's got phenomenal strike rate, and that's why possibly he was getting that nod. Prithvi now making his debut, so he's going to push for that spot. Ishan Kishan also has used that opportunity and then brings in 2 disciplines as well. So the call is pretty much basically going to be based on that. Shikhar, we've seen so far, has been really enjoying these small little challenges which he's facing in this in his career towards this phase in his career. So I think he will look at it that way. He's a smart guy, so he'll be very keen, and hence that statement. I feel he just wants to show that he's very keen. He wants to be there, part of that team, and he's going to go out there and try and achieve that.
The left-handedness is important, but interestingly, the challenge for Shikhar is actually in that department from Ishan Kishan. And you're looking at a 30-ball innings, right? If you're stacking your batting down, you're looking at a 30-ball innings. If you do anything more than that, you've got to be scoring much quicker. But in a 30-ball innings, you need a fearless guy who's going to go bang, bang, bang. Maybe Ishan Kishan is more that person than Shikhar Dhawan is. If you're going to be batting till 8-9, which you need to, then maybe Ishan Kishan is more that person. So at the moment, tough. But how many times have we said that about Shikhar and been proved wrong? So that's why I'm very excited watching him play.
And also there has been that discussion around KL Rahul keeping in the shortest format. So that wicketkeeper role also is an important role for that position to do the dual role. So that's why the Sanju Samson becomes important. That's why Ishan Kishan becomes important, and that's why KL Rahul also becomes important, because you need a keeper in the playing level.
Well, fair enough. Through that entire discussion, a question that I wanted a yes or a no got some wonderful analytics, but at the end of it, I got 2 no's. So we'll stick to that for the moment, and we will talk about Ishan Kishan in a moment, because interestingly, Harsha, since we talked about traffic jams, the only way you can slot into a traffic jam like Bengaluru or Mumbai is on a bike. And they say you need to get on your bike if you need to score hard. So maybe an Ishan Kishan is a biker as opposed to a Shikhar Dhawan. But before we discuss Ishan Kishan, let's have a look at the Sri Lankan playing 11. There are actually 2 teams playing out there, so let's not forget the opposition just because they've played less T20 internationals. 2 debutants, Karunaratne expected to get into the side. Charit Asalanka also expected to get in. Both made their debuts. How relieved will they be that Hasaranga's free from injury, Harsha?
Very much so. So it obviously was a little muscle scratch, not a muscle strain or a muscle pull or whatever. And see, there are a lot of traffic. Uh, they've got 9 bowling options in there. I think Ashan Bandara bowls too. So they've got 9 bowling options in that side. I don't know, that's always great. But depending on how the surface plays, they said it's a little damp to start off with, which might help them. It might grip a little bit more as well. So they've got lots of bowling options. So from the point of view of the construct of the team, it's not a bad side because they've got loads of bowling options. And as you saw there, people like Hasaranga, Karunaratne, they can get a move on and they'll bat all the way down to 8 or 9. So the construct of the team is not bad. Now they've got to show the pedigree because you give Udana, say, 8 balls. If you're batting at 9, you're not getting more than that anyway. 8 balls, he'll give you 15 runs some days. So, or some days more. So it's a good side from that point of view. Now, whether the pedigree will be manifest, we have to wait and see.
It took a while to get Dhananjaya in, but he's stuck into that T20 side, Zaheer. And Udana's experience will be important because of all the names we've talked about, he's one who has sort of been around the leagues, shall we say.
So straight away now, after ODI series, when you look at the shorter format, you feel that the competition is going to be a good one. You feel that it's not going to be that easy for this Indian team to just steamroll them. I think, the Isru Udana with his experience of shorter format, Hasaranga coming back in that playing 11, definitely going to boost that morale. Akila Dhananjaya using that opportunity which he got in the last ODI, certainly can carry that momentum forward. On the whole, I felt, if the Sri Lankan team can create similar kind of intensity, what they finished the ODI series with, I think, they will be in with a chance. They won the toss, they're bowling first. So that also gives them that added advantage in this format. We've seen teams like to do that. So if they restrict India to a good total, that will certainly be putting them in a good space to carry the momentum from the previous ODI to really make a game out of it and try and win it.
Yes, but as we promised just moments before we declared that Sri Lankan 11 and had a look at it, we started talking about the possible left-hander who could be the one who gets on his bike vis-a-vis Shikhar Dhawan. Ishan Kishan in the team purely as a batsman, or at least as far as the team has been listed. They've shown Sanju Samson as the man with the gloves. He'll probably bat at 5, Harsha, but Ishan Kishan again hasn't exactly made any statements, but he'll need to make a statement if he wants to get in.
Especially because he struggled a bit in the first leg of the IPL. I mean, last year's IPL was a dream tournament for him. I mean, all of a sudden, he's coming in after Quinton de Kock, another left-hander, another little left-hander, and he was hitting mighty sixes. And you said, oh, wow, hang on, let's stop what we're doing. Let's watch this kid play. And he averaged, 57? As a top order batsman, there's not a lot of not outs there. He averaged 57 at a strike rate of 145. That was sensational. So him and Surya Kumar Yadav were the big change in that 2020 campaign for MI, the even number win, as we talked about so often. Now, if he can play with that fearlessness, and I think he likes the ball coming on, but if he can play with that fearlessness, the other thing that he has is he can take on spin. He's not afraid of taking on the spinners, which he might need to do today.
Yeah, the fearlessness, which is represented by the first ball 6, which was not just a coincidence. It was something, Zaheer, that he had told his teammates, I'm going to go out and do that. I mean, just in case we were wondering, he said so. I thought odds were in my favor. It's my birthday. That doesn't come every day, once a year only. And I'd been keeping wickets for 50 overs and I knew there wasn't much assistance for spinners. So I think that was a key factor, Zaheer, the fact that he had kept for 50 overs and he knew what the surface was like.
So I think the fact that he had that clarity, so Ishan Kishan of say 3 years or 4 years back didn't have that clarity. Ishan Kishan of 4 years back possibly would go out there and be overwhelmed by the occasion, be thinking about what the situation of the game is, what the others are thinking, what the commentators are talking, or what the team management is looking at, what are they expecting. There is all clutter of thought, which kind of keeps you away from your originality. The originality in terms of going out there, taking the game on, backing your instincts. And I think what he has achieved now, or how he is evolved. Those numbers of last year's IPL were staggering. There's no doubt about it. That he put up those numbers. He had a phenomenal season. But I think that clarity of thought has what has helped him achieve those numbers what he achieved in the previous year. And any conversation I was having with him, I was actually talking about the same thing. For any cricketer, I feel it's like that first year, you don't know whether you're coming or going. You're just kind of excited about everything. Then the second year, the others figure your game out, and you have to win that particular battle of doing well in the second year. And then the third year, actually, it's like the expectations are high, and then you have to stay on top of that. You have your own expectations from your own game. So all these things, the graph has to be upwards. And I think with Ishan Kishan, it was like that one inning in 14 matches, or just going out playing that one good innings, and then after that not following it up, or missing opportunities. That kind of those first 3 years, because he's already played 4-5 seasons of IPL. So he's not a newcomer at that level. So it's important. It was very important for him in the last year to show that he's capable of doing that. And I think when he approached that season, he didn't start the season, played that RCB's great knock, where he virtually won us that game from nowhere. Scored that 99, got out, couldn't really finish the game on the winning side. But I think there was that switch which was on after that, and he just followed it up brilliantly. So I think what the statement which he's made right now is just a sign of that clarity which he has in his thought process now.
You can't forget that knock. I mean, you could see Pollard was, I think, at the other end with him for quite a while, and you could see him just. Pollard is not always expressive about admiration on his face, but he was just gobsmacked about that. But Harsha, let me put one thing to you. Zaheer talked about having chats with Ishan Kishan. You've been part of this franchise early on as well. How important?
Too long back to remember.
Fair enough. But how important is it for someone like Ishan Kishan to be in that sort of franchise where a Mahela or a Zaheer Khan will talk to him and say that it's okay to be you?
There's a reason some franchises, and I know we'll be talking about a lot of this when the IPL restarts, there's a reason some franchises achieve consistent results because players grow in that franchise. Look at in the glory days of CSK, and they're starting to play well again, which is fantastic to see. See how players were growing within the franchise. Now you come to MI and see how players are growing in that franchise. Surya Kumar Yadav has flowered there. Ishan Kishan has flowered there. Quinton de Kock has played elsewhere. He's coming and winning you games. Trent Bolt has played elsewhere. He's coming and winning you games. There's something in the air that you breathe that allows these. You're seeing that in Delhi now as well. You see good things happening in the Delhi franchise too. So I think it's important in your development as a player. And no surprise that one of our experts so often, Michael Vaughan, said it's the best T20 team in the world. So that will be tested. We'll ask Zach about it later. That will be tested in about a month and a half. When it restarts. But I think the reason that the Ashwins and Jadejas grew in CSK, the reason the Suryas and Ishan Kishans grew in MI is I think that is the reason, that the air they breathe is very positive.
Yeah, Michael Vaughan, I mean, he's already the only effective team director of Mumbai Indians without actually being there. He's your number one fan, I can tell you that. That's for sure.
Indian supporter of MI.
Absolutely. But no matter which team you support, at the moment, we're talking T20 international action, the experienced India against the pretenders, if I can call it that, very loosely, Sri Lanka. But for now, there's no pretending. India batting first, T20 international. Harsha, power score at the end of 20 overs.
They say it's a bit damp. Look, we don't know what the pitch is like, but normally it's a fantastic batting surface. It's a late start. It'll be the same for both sides. So I'll go 182. 182, 183.
182. That'll take some getting. Zaheer, are you highballing that?
Close to that, 175.
Okay.
175.
Then I guess I have to highball it. 195. I will go 195 straight off. So 70s, 80s, and 90s is what we're talking about. That's not about eras, it's about numbers. But let's go to a man who spans eras across the game and tries to find out a bit of trivia for us. And today, 90s. There we go. 70s, 80s, 90s. Today is about the 90s. In a Ranji match in the 90s, 2 double centuries and a triple were scored in the same innings. The triple ton scorer went on to work for the BCCI. The second's father had played for India, named the third highest scorer. You've got to find the game, you've got to find the triple centurion, look at different family members, and then find the third one. Harsha is nodding his head, but please don't give us the answer.
Too much.
Well done. I'm still struggling to try and get there, but Joy, you've at least found a fan in Harsha for that one. All of you, get in there, give us the numbers, and then we will try and come to where we are. We've got our numbers, we've got our Joy Factor question, and we will come back in the 10th over with a reminder that if you want to catch the highlights, you miss anything, you can get it on Cricbuzz Plus. Yes, that's a reminder. So much to find on Cricbuzz Plus, including highlights from the ODI series and now the T20 internationals. We'll see you in the 10th over on Cricbuzz Combox. Will India manage to achieve that 170 plus? We'll see you soon.